Some people already were ahead of the others on account of what they were doing long before the crisis came on board.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let me ask from the professional perspective. So, David, how would you perceive a crisis for somebody that has managed crisis over the years yourself? Yeah.
Interestingly, when Omojua mentioned that crisis begins before the crisis. So in crisis management, it begins with issues management. Now, for every business, there are issues and trends that are likely to happen for that particular business. For instance, if you're a restaurant business, somebody is going to come up one day and say there's food poisoning, they ate your food, and they're falling sick and all of that. Now, a proper crisis management plan will anticipate issues within the sector where you operate even before it happens, and you outline these issues and say, this is likely to happen, this is likely to happen based on the operations of our business. And when this happens, this is how we're going to respond to it. So effective crisis management begins before the crisis happens. And just like Omojua said, when it then happens, how you handle it will be based on how prepared you were. Now, I'd like to also add that crisis shouldn't be seen as something negative always, because sometimes when people hear crisis, they're hysterical and they think like, oh, things are going bad. But a lot of organizations have leveraged crisis to get their name out there and show to people who they truly are, because during a crisis, your true self comes out. Now, for organizations that handles it effectively, shows empathy, accept responsibility where they need to accept, and take action to addressing the issues, it then shows that this organization is a responsible organization. So crisis is not always a negative thing, and in fact, sometimes crisis should happen, because that's when the true test of or the integrity of the organization is revealed.
Okay, so Damilare, I'm going to ask you now, what do you think is the issue with why do you feel let me rephrase that. So the tech industry has a lot of crises right now. And although it's getting better, it keeps getting better, and you've reported for the tech media for a long time now. Why do you think that the tech industry is prone to crisis at this particular early stage, where it's trying to grow, it's trying to build up, become better? Yeah.
So, I'll try as much as possible to be neutral. I promise that. But as someone who sort of like have a reputation to create crisis, to stir the waters, I would say we've seen a pattern. Yeah, I'm not gonna I won't accept to the old sentiment of it is getting better. It is not. It's just like we have not been able to report everything that is happening, right? And I'll tell you, one of the major reasons why the ecosystem is sort of like prone to crisis is because we're still early, right? And when you're early, you are forgiving, like mostly forgiving. When you're a child, you do something wrong, they look at you, they beat you, or they even forgive you. So that's what we're currently experiencing. You beat some, what you know, if you get to like something that comes to light, you report them. It's like you're beating them. You are trying to call them to order. I'll just mention something that happened last year. Florida wave, right? That was like the elephant in the house last year. It was like huge. Everybody was talking about it. And there's something that you would accept with me that is like early stage problem. Every story, every individual, every subject in that story came from when Florida wave was still like early, right? So when startups just like when you're just starting a startup, it's likely that the business is going to take the character of the founder or of the founding team, right? So there's so many, you're going to have a lot of anyhowness, right? So Flutterwave, everything that happened like 5 years ago. They are now like, they have a global footprint now. They cannot afford to misbehave, right? Because they have something great. They are looking into IPOing, doing a lot of great stuff. And that was why it was quite easy for them to get out of it, because it happened when they were still early, and most of their stakeholders like were already aware of it. They've settled it in-house. They've already, so that was like, again, Bento as well. Bento is still early. I think they've only raised like maybe Series A, I guess. Still early. And a lot of like 70 or 80% of the startup in our ecosystem are still early. We are like a nascent stage. So we are going to see stuff like this. When you are building, you're going to try a lot of stuff. As you are iterating your product, you are also going to be iterating your culture. How you treat your employee, how you treat your customer. I mean, a lot of founders are just learning. A lot of founders are just first-time founders, right? Someone is coming out of the university. They've never managed people before. They've never done business before, and they're raising like $2 million, right? So it's just like what's this guy, Justin Bieber, when they say, "What do you expect me to do?" I mean, I was young and rich, but when you see Justin Bieber now, he's a well-grounded young man. So I think that's what it's just early stage. The reason why we're seeing a lot of crisis is because it's early stage. As we grow, we tend to use our sense to do a couple of stuff.
Okay, so how do you, for someone from the tech media now, how do you say that you pick stories to report?
She still want to probe me because you pitched me and I'm not. All right, sorry about that. It's not like I'm trying to pick your story or saying your story is not important. But again, it's our audience is like the biggest goal for us. We are just like a startup. The way they are customer-centric, we are also audience-centric, right? Again, no, there's so many things we need to tell. There's so many things we need to inform. There's so many things we need to report. So there's some that regardless of who's reading it, we need to report it, right? Regardless of if our audience are going to read it, we need to report it because it's like integrity is on the line, right? Is on the line. So again, we are strictly tech focused publication, right? So if you're bringing a pitch of a business that is like doing something using small tech, maybe they are using telephone to take order, right? I mean, that's tech. But they are also doing like great numbers. You try to pitch them to us, we'll look at you that, hey, what is the technology in this business, right? We only want to cover tech business, how tech is affecting people on the continent. So that's one. We have a focus, which is tech. The second one is how important is the story? Is it worth for me to, should I leave everything I'm doing to jump on it? If it's not, I can just take it back to like lower priority, right? So again, it's about priority and how important the story is. And also our audience is like in the core of everything we do. So if your story is important to our audience, we will tell that story. If it is less important, we have to make it less important, tell the most important stories, then come back to it.
So if you wanted to report, for example, the horrible bosses or something like that, what was the process of choosing that story?
Yeah, so we don't get to choose story. Exactly. So story chooses us. For instance, I like to, because I've spoken about this Bento story a couple of times, and I tell people that, hey, that story actually originated from this particular location that we are. Last year, TechPoint was doing one event here in this building, and I met with one of ecosystem guy, and he was just going on and on about Bento and how it was horrible for their employees. And it was like, why is nobody talking about this? It's like, because the employees didn't want to talk. They were scared. I was like, okay, I like that. Let's see what we can do. And I started reaching out to people, right? Reaching out to, I mean, it was difficult to get people to speak. But, I mean, I tend to placate them, tell them that, hey, anonymity, nobody's going to know it's you except the guy. Because, I mean, both of you live the story together. So any other person is not going to know. But this guy, the CEO, everybody that worked in that business would know that is your story that is being told. But nobody, our readers won't know. I promised them anonymity, and they accepted like one after the other. So that's the way story sort of like chooses also. It's not like we won't be the one to run. So if that would be like we have an agenda if we are chasing story, right? Story like, for instance, somebody raised $500 million. I'm not the one that raised that money for them. They raise the money, they come to us, we've raised. That's a story, right? So story sort of like choose us. But again, this is how we choose our own story by data, trends, looking at, okay, this particular event has been happening for a couple of years, and that's a story. And it's still happening at this scale, right? You start asking the questions, who are the people behind these things? How much does it take to build this kind of event and to continue to have this amount of continuity? You know, you're looking for story. You're asking questions, right? So that's the way you see trends, you interpret trends. That's the way you chase. That's the kind of story you chase, right? But most of all this, you chase them anyway, but you have to wait for them to come before you start chasing. Yeah.
Okay, so Amojua, I wanted to find out, as somebody that has experienced different issues from time to time and situations, how have you been able to still continue to maintain a good reputation over the years?
Hello? Thank you. I think the most important thing, whether as an individual or as a platform like TechCabal, is to be true to yourself. And because then, if in the midst of being true to yourself, you get in trouble on the internet and you start to trend, of course, if that's like your first time, you're going to think the world is about to crash. But if you're used to it, you know that these people are going to move on to something else later. And so these days, if I find myself trending on social media, if I was still online, I just continue to be online. If I was not online, I would just continue what I was doing, because you already know, you have learned the ideology of the average internet user. Especially with respect to you as a person or with respect to you as an organization. So you know that there are people on the platform that do not care for the backstory. They just see that you are trending, which gives them an opportunity to say things against you that they ordinarily wouldn't say if the place was quiet. But now everybody's talking, so everybody can just say whatever they want to say. There are people that actually are neutral. They are neutral, which means they want to find out what's the backstory, and they would either blame you if, according to the data they have, that you were wrong, or based on their data, exonerate you, or maintain their neutrality, like, this is a non-issue, why are they making noise about it? And then there's a third group of people that, even if they say that you've murdered someone and there is evidence, they will defend you to death. They will say, no, go and check, that thing is artificial intelligence. Go and check, it is some Web3 operation going on. This person can never do this. Once you understand these three sets of people, and you understand that, by the way, out of those three, the smallest group are the people that are waiting for the backstory to say, actually, I think based on what I have seen, this person was wrong, or this person, they are the smallest group. The biggest group are the biased group, whether they are biased towards you or they are biased against you. Personally, I classify the people that are biased towards you and people that are biased against you in the same box. They operate from the same, different poles, but the same pole. One is just on this other side of the pole, one is on that other side. Basically, one loves you, one hates you, right? And this other one is, more often than not, is the smaller group of people that they are indifferent about you, but they care about the issue. They go after the issue and they find out that this person was wrong or right. And after that issue is done, they move on from you. The other group of people do not move on from you. They continue to be for you, other things being equal, of course, depending on why they were for you in the first place, or they continue to be against you, other things being equal, depending on why they were for you. But this for me comes from experience of different waves, whether personally or the ones that I took my head in and they made me the main issue. But I think that it generally applies across the board. Pick an average politician, pick an average political party, pick an average superstar musician, pick an average superstar movie superstar. You actually find out that by and large, they have people that are always going to be on. This is how you're going to know. Twitter is not the place to know. Go to the person's Instagram page. You will see, no matter what they say the person has done, the bulk of the people tweeting at the person are saying nice things to the person. They're telling the person to be strong and this and that and that. But go to a seemingly neutral media platform, you sort of get an idea. But although there's also a head thing where the first few people to comment sort of lead the direction of where the comments go. Human beings, they think they're rational, but human beings are substantively irrational by design. It's not even anybody's fault. We're just irrational. But the beautiful thing is that we think that we're rational. Then that other part is where Twitter comes in, where really, for Twitter, it depends on whether they have a long history of relationship with them, or they don't know you from anywhere, or whether you're beautiful. If you're a beautiful woman, there's something there too. If you're a vocal woman, there's something there. If you are a woman, there's something there. If you are a model guy, you go to the gym, but you don't think that you are doing anything else, the people that don't like you, when you start trending, is that your work that they will use to fire you? So at the end of the day, it's difficult, when you're in that situation, it's difficult to see it like that. But really and truly, that's what it is. The bulk of people really and truly do not matter. The people that matter is a minuscule of people that are really interested in the story, that are really interested in the news. When they come to you and ask you, please, what really happened, do your best to give them your side of the story. If your side of the story is good. If your side of the story is not good, don't reply them. I was doing a story, I was doing a column based on some Ponzi issue, right? And I wrote the story, and it was very strongly anti-EFCC. And I sent it to a media house, and they refused to publish it. And so maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I'd have been like pissed off. But I understood, because then I started to see the cyclic relationship between the organization I was writing against, the media platform, and the proprietorship of the media platform. And I don't blame the game. I just trying to find out what's going on in this game. So what did I do? I took the story away from, I didn't take it away from them. They didn't want it. So I published it on the internet, and I achieved the same end. The organization that I tried to speak to say, what's your side of the story, that did not reply me, after the story popped on the internet, they started to make commitments about, okay, actually this is what the issue is. We are taking the matter to court, so just be patient with us. One of the best things that has happened to us as a collective, whether as a generation, as individuals, as organizations, is that I don't believe that gatekeepers have disappeared, but I think that the roles of gatekeepers have reduced drastically, because the truth of the matter is, I would still have preferred that story was in the newspaper, because things would have happened much faster than they did happen when I posted it on a regular media platform. But 20 years ago, that story would have just died anyway, because I wouldn't have been able to post it anyway if the paper said no. So I'm grateful for that. But if you're here, your organization, whoever trends, understand that when you're trending, you're in your most emotional state, and by and large, you're unlikely to do the right thing. What I do is that I go to bed and sleep. And I say this as a matter of fact. I actually go to bed and sleep. And my best I think one of my worst media, whatever, was in 2021 in April. I had my best sleep that year in the midst, at the height of that thing. But when I woke up, there was clarity. Like, I knew exactly what to do. When I gathered the lawyers together, I was one that was telling them the strategy we needed to deploy. We deployed the strategy. Everything just died right there and then. So I always advise go to bed. That's also because I go to bed when things are at their worst state. So if both of us, if you were like my wife or girlfriend or something, and we have a big fight, I go to bed. You won't like it. Like, you're stressing up, and I'm sleeping. You're thinking I don't care. But really, that's my way of actually dealing with issues. So find what works for you. Some people, they go to the gym. Some people, they go to Netflix. But do something to distract you from that issue, because that distraction puts you in a place where you can see things more clearly. You can't see things clearly when you are emotional. And organizations can be emotional. Organizations are kind of individuals too. They can be emotional. So rule number one is, don't act in the midst of your emotions. Allow room for calm, and not calm as per calm down. No, actually intentionally go out of your way to find calm, whether as an individual or as an organization. With calm, ceteris paribus, comes clarity. So in the midst of clarity, then have a conversation. Now, I know that they say after the first, in the conventional PR world, it was 1 hour. With social media, it's different from 1 hour. But that's why, back to what I said from the beginning, that's why as an organization, you must have built a very strong will, a very strong bank of goodwill, whereby people that are on the internet that you've not briefed, you've not said anything about what happened, they are already standing for you. They're already saying, no. He gave a very good example of a restaurant, right? They're already saying, no, the last time I was in that restaurant, I complained about this. They handled it immediately. The last time, also, that's true. I was also there at Valentine's, and this thing happened, and they handled it. So I'm sorry, I'm not inclined to believe that this happened and they didn't treat it. But guess what? If there's been a history of people going there and the restaurant being rubbish, any slightest bad news, everybody will jump on that organization. So again, I'm going to reiterate that your crisis, whether it's a major crisis or not, actually depends on the things you were doing long before you had that challenge. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to ask, the next question is, for Twitter, you're quite active on Twitter.
I used to be very active, not as much.
Okay. So on Twitter, would you say that it's still the best tool to break stories, or would you say it's just a...
Best really and truly depends on...
Because a lot of people perceive Twitter as a platform where a lot of people are fighting. They just come there to fight.
A lot of mad people are there, to be frank.
So would you say that it's still the best platform for that?
I think, so I'm very careful with answering questions this day in the absolute sense, since I started using scientific means to engage issues. So I would say best really depends on the beholder. If, I'd use Neymar the footballer, as an example. You know, I don't know how many of you know Neymar. You know, Neymar is one of the greatest footballers who have ever, played the game. He's a Brazilian footballer. And he also likes to have fun. So he had seen this lady on Instagram, Brazil's Instagram, the way we have Nigerian Twitter, and he had invited the lady to Paris, right? And, I mean, they had a nice time. And then days later, the lady says he raped her. And it was such a big issue everywhere, but especially in Brazil. But for one reason or the other, Neymar had a video on in the other room, and the video was capturing the room that they were at, and it showed that the lady was actually sort of, at that time, it was not explainable. She was just trying to create a crisis and pushing him and everything. But what caused the long story short, Neymar put his side of the story on Instagram. But that was because at that time, Neymar had over 100 million followers, about 140 million followers. I'm sure by now he probably has 200 or more. And then from that point, everybody took it. What Neymar basically did was he gave it to us on his strongest platform, one. Two, he also gave it to us on a platform where the bulk of the people following him are likely to be on his side. So he decided his psychology and pathway of thinking on that issue. But also what he also did was he gave us videos. He gave us a video. So it wasn't just him saying this is what really happened. He was actually showing you exactly what happened. It would have been different if he had come to Twitter and he started to text. Because again, text is text. Then two, Twitter by design, they are cynical. They are cynical. They tend to just not believe you anyway. I don't mean all of them, But by design, the fact that you're famous is a disadvantage. The fact that you have certain histories, you left Barcelona, you're always falling before anybody touches you. You know, they use your past to judge you, not the issue. And with Neymar, it would have been on a very bad standing. But other things being equal, is still Twitter, I think. Other things being equal, but each organization must look at. You can't take a decision based on other things being equal, because for the individual, it's not other things being equal. It is your peculiar situation. Other things being equal is in a normal situation, you want to go to Twitter because now you also have room to do about 10 minutes of video, maybe even more if you have business with Twitter. But as an organization, you want to ask yourself, where's our strength? Where's our believability? Because even though you are one organization, your believability is different across different platforms. How people, if you say the sky is blue, the percentage of people that believe you on Instagram as an organization is not exactly the same for Twitter versus TikTok versus LinkedIn versus Facebook and other such platforms. So you want to ask yourself, which is our highest believability from? Because you want to start on that strong position, because ultimately that thing that then filters to everywhere else. But in the absence of knowing what to do, then I would say go to Twitter and pray that they're on your side.
So my next question is for Mr. David Igdago. Would you say that the African culture has an effect on the kind of crisis that we have in this environment?
Yes, but before I answer the question, I need to also put a caveat to what Omojua said. Now, Omojua said he would, sometimes not send people. That's his brand, his brand essence. Just like he mentioned Burna Boy, right? So Burna Boy can do some stuff and nothing will happen. He will not send anybody. I think it also depends on what your brand persona is and how you are positioned out there. So if you're a brand that, if you are not a I don't send you brand like Omojua, please do not go and sleep. You need to have like an appropriate response, and everybody's opinion matters, even though they are not directly your stakeholders, because it can spiral, right? They might not necessarily be the people that give you money or buy product from you, but it can spiral. Just one statement it becomes a bigger problem. So again, it depends on the brand, and you have to know what your brand is. But if you are like Omojua's brand, please, you can go ahead and sleep. Now, talking about the African culture, yes, there are a lot of things about our culture as it has to do with things like respect, how women are treated. If you look at some of the stories talk about broke, it had to do with work culture. You need to respect the person who is paying you. You need to worship the person who is paying you. And you need to do certain things that goes against your personal values or personal beliefs, because that person is the older person, whether older in terms of age or older in terms of seniority and hierarchy in workplace. So we tend to have these disposition to accept a lot of things and then encourage the people who are, doing this stuff to continue to do it, and which in itself breeds crises until one point someone is going, you just get one millennial who comes in and like, what's happening here? And say, I will not accept this. And it becomes an issue and it blows out. So yes, our culture, I think our culture is being, in a way, sometimes leveraged to do certain things and get away with it. So it's not supposed to be the case, but that's the case. And if we want to drill down to the specifics, I mentioned women issues, how women are treated at workplaces. I mentioned things like respect between bosses and employees. You've got to practically, worship your boss, otherwise your salary will not come. So, yeah, it definitely does have something to do with the type of crisis that happens.
Okay, so this should be the last question for Dami before I then do a general
For me?
question. Yes.
All right.
So the last question is, there are bigger organizations who also have the same issues that have been addressed or have been perceived as horrible, so why is it possible that the tech media at this time is more focused on the startups, trying to make sure that the startups are doing the right thing now?
Yeah.
Or is it that they are just ignoring the big organizations because the big organizations actually have these realities? It's just that they have PR firms that work well. So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm not really friendly with Mike, so apologies. Tech, when we talk about tech in the African context, we mostly talk about startups, right? But there are some like companies that have been doing tech before now, but they are mostly mostly B2G. Like they are not, most of them are not consumable or consumer goods or software-led or product-led. Most of them are doing like infrastructures, telecoms, hardcore computing. We have Xerox, we have Infosys, we have all these big guys. It's not like we are letting them slide. It's because, again, they are not in the limelight. And it takes a spark. It takes one person to speak up, right? It's startup, because startup is like mostly like you have millennial versus like the Gen Z that are like, and Gen Z, they are non-conforming to some extent that they always talk like he's not giving. They will tell you he's not giving, and they always come out to talk, right? So. But these guys, this legacy business, legacy tech business is like, they are not startups, they are like, and most of them sort of like have like corporate governance that is not, they sort of like break power across different arms, right? Power is not centralized, it's not on the founder, right? So in a case where you don't have, where you have like governing boards, you have like all these guys that even CEO, most of the guys that actually funded the business, they are not actively involved in the business again, right? So the CEO cannot misbehave, right? They have governing board that is saying, do this, do this, do this. This is me just saying it is likely for them to have more like functional corporate governance compared to startups, right? Startups, a lot of early stage startups don't have governing boards. Their investors are mostly angel investors that are just writing small checks. Even the early stage investors do not have time to sit on. For instance, one VC is investing in about 50 startups. And that VC only has just 6 employees, right? Or 7, or let's just say 10 employees. You cannot sit on all the boards, or you cannot even create, most early stage it's not advisable to create boards because you are still going to like raise more funds. You are still going to dilute your equity as you go. And you need to create space for all these guys that are bringing big money to be able to sit on the boards. But if you have filled all the boards in early stage, what will all these guys sit on, right? So it is just that this culture menace is like really mostly like pronounced in startups because again it's early and everybody's just learning. Founders are learning, employees are learning, even investors that are putting money is learning, right? Because most VC, they have not been doing VC for 5 or 6 years. They've only been doing VC for 2-3 years, right? So they're also learning the ropes. Everybody's learning the ropes. But all these big guys that they have like structured organization, they tend to do less, there's office politics, right? But again, it takes one person to speak up. If someone is working at MTN and say, hey, MTN is treating us badly, come and tell us, then we investigate. We investigate. If it's like that, we report, right? So it's not like we are letting anybody slide. If your company is treating you anyhow here, come and see me later. We are going to investigate that company. If you are saying the truth, we'll reach out to the, again, I mean, yeah, it has to be a tech company. Sorry. It has to be a tech company because I cannot be poking my nose into FMCG, right? I'm not an FMCG guy. It has to be. I'm a tech reporter. So come, tell us, we investigate. If it's like that, if it checks out, we look for more people that have the similar experience as you. I mean, once you're having like 3, 4, 5 persons in like an organization, is a culture, right? That story is worth telling. Again, I just don't want to tell stories about your founders maltreating you. I want to tell stories about your founders are treating you well as well. So if your founder is treating you well, that you think, in a Nigerian company, this is not normal. Still come and tell us. So we like good story as well. We are not just about crisis. We want to tell good stories. So tell us that one as well. I mean, I have to say this, sorry, I'm selling my market. We are not a prophet of doom or what. We love the ecosystem and we want to always tell good stories. So if you have any, reach out to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the last question for David Idagu. Why do African startups, tech startups specifically, why do they need a communication or crisis communication plan ahead of crisis?
It's just like asking, why would you need insurance or life insurance, even though, yes, a lot of startups and small businesses think that, we only need to wait until we are big before we start putting together a crisis communications plan. The fact is, like I mentioned earlier, every business is prone to a particular type of crisis, depending on who your consumer is, the environment, the market that you operate. So it's important that you put together the plan, not to save cost, as well as avoid cost. Now, what I mean there is that when it happens, the money you're trying to save, the money you think you don't have, you will bring it out. And sometimes that, for us in PR and comms, we believe that's where you give us the blank check. Because then you would say, this is the check, please write what you want, because you need it to be solved, because it's affecting your business. So it's important to put together a plan to save that cost and avoid costs that may come up when you're trying to do damage control, which there's no guarantee that you do it effectively. So just like in life, generally, you have to prepare well, because if you don't plan, then of course, that statement says if you don't plan, then you're planning to fail, or you're planning to do pretty much badly. So it helps you save costs, it helps you avoid costs as well.
Okay, so thank you very much. Mr. Mojua, so what advice, as a brand yourself, what advice would you give to the tech community right now?
Also, first of all, I think he insinuated it. It's a new space. You're still storming. It's in a forming process. But also, you see, the thing is, I always tell people, yes, experience is the best teacher, but I'd rather not experience some things myself. I want to learn from other people's experience. So people need to go out of their way to find out what's happened elsewhere. One of the failings in Nigeria today, this Naira scarcity, should never happen. Because just recently, India had a transition, and we saw how messed up it was. So we should have learned from... I'm not in any way in charge of this thing, and I was watching what was happening to India, and I was trying to see what we could pick as a country. So I'm shocked that somebody somewhere and people somewhere that are supposedly responsible for this didn't see that. So as an industry, let's understand that a lot of some ecosystems have been through the things we're going through. We may not go through exactly the paths they're going through, but there are certain things they've gone through that will prove useful for us. So let's learn from abroad. Also, let us anticipate things before they happen. I think that's also essential. Like, put yourself in scenarios before they happen. Like, if this happened to us, what would we do? One of the reasons why America, as an empire, has survived to this point is because America always anticipates, whether via the conventional security system or via its movies. You will be shocked to find out that the United States government, when they see something happen in a movie and they've not had a scenario about that thing, they start to play that thing back. White House down and all of that stuff. They start to see how possible can this thing happen. So as an ecosystem, as an individual organization, have scenarios. If you're going for an interview as a CEO and a question is coming as a surprise for you, you should not be the CEO because you should have expected, first of all, expecting means expecting the worst. Expecting the worst then means that, what's the worst question this person can throw at me? And it doesn't have to be a TV interview. It could be a regular panel like this. Like, what's the hardest question I would find difficult answering? Then when they throw that question at you, you might even pretend like that's the first time you're hearing something like that, but then you shut it down. But where you're just living from one day to the other like every other person, well, you most likely would disappear like every other person. But if you anticipate the future and prepare yourself towards that future, it's impossible to anticipate everything that will happen. But if you anticipate a lot, most of the things that happen to you, when they happen, it looks like you're living them again, like deja vu, and which means that you're better prepared to handle them.
So thank you very much.
Sorry, I quickly just want to just say something briefly. So like crisis communication for startup is essentially the way I've studied it is startups don't communicate to their users. They communicate to their investors, right? They mostly communicate to people that are giving them money, right? And if you see a lot of like, and that's why a lot of like startups don't talk when things like this happen. Why? Because they just send an email to their investors. Don't worry, we did all right, right? Then they leave the audience, they leave the people hanging, right? Because of course, what do you have to do? Use their product. Fine, if you don't use their product, they know what they can do to still pitch their investors. Then that one will still drop millions of dollars. So what they are mostly like concerned about is the relationship with their investors and not essentially with the general public, right? So, I mean, I just like, that's a problem I just raised, not a solution. I think everybody should go home and think about that, if it is true or not.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. My advice to everybody generally is to just have a PR agency, PR manager, or someone, a friend, who is into public relations that can advise you on whatever. Oh, you have a question. Please go ahead. Okay.
Right. So I've been on the marketing and communications end, right, for a number of startups. And one experience I have is you want to break a story urgently. You reach out to me on Thursday. You tell me, hey, this story needs to go out on Friday. And so I have to probably pause work or actually have a longer weekend just to make sure that you get your answer. And note, in providing you that answer, I have to provide the kind of context that helps my business survive whatever story you're about to drop, right? And so let's say it takes longer than usual to, let's say, provide that answer in a way that is smart enough to not say, oh, guys, we are thieves in this company, right? And then the story breaks the next day and you, as simple as say, oh, we reached out to this person for a comment and they did not provide an answer or they declined to comment. I feel like sometimes when journalists do that, you already make the person that has not responded a guilty party, right? And how do you navigate that actually personally? Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Charles. And by the way, Charles is an OG. So, well, personally, I give, when I'm reaching out to people, I reach out to you like maybe like, give you like a week, 5 days. All my stories that are very critical, like, for instance, the Bento story, Flutterwave stories, CUDA stories, every story that I know that can actually affect your business, I give you like 4 days. In fact, in the case of Bento, we give them like 7 days, right? Because we understand that this is critical. And even before, there's this like advice we give ourselves in the newsroom. Before you start even writing about the story, we don't want to know if you can preempt it. You can go out and start talking that the story is coming. We don't mind. We'd let you know that we're writing a story and we need you to be ready to prepare your comments, whatever it is you want to say to us, right? So me personally, I give like 4 days, 5 days, all the stories, all the critical stories I've done, 3 days. 3 days is the minimum. And the one that I give you 3 days is maybe, they're not like critical stories. Maybe like, maybe you raise money. And I just don't want to write the fluffy stories that you raise money. I ask you a question like, hey, this money that you raised, what do you want to do with it? You raised a certain amount of money last year. What have you done with it? You know, that is something you don't have to be thinking about. It's what you use the money to. Quickly arrange it for boys, right? But critical stories like that I know will affect your business and I will change the reputation of your business. I give you like a week, right? And I don't know, everybody every company can actually, I don't know if they are willing to be honest, they will tell you that. And I also agree with you, it is wrong. It is not wrong. We cannot say it is wrong. What you have to do is to reach out. Like as a journalist, but you have to also like apply empathy, right? As human, building business is not easy. You need to know that. Don't just be obsessed about breaking stories, right? Give people time. And we tell ourselves in the newsroom, like, give people time. We are not enemy of the ecosystem. We are friends. We help to build this ecosystem, right? We shouldn't be the one that will bring it down. So give them time to gather their thoughts and drop comments, right? So for me, and I think that's very critical. Thank you for bringing, like I said, he's an OG. He's only OG that will think that. So that's that for me, yeah.
Okay.
Let me add to what he said. You know, Omojua mentioned something. He said, you've got to anticipate. Now, as much as that is not, I wouldn't say it's fair because in the game of business, there's nothing like fair or not. So before that question comes, you should already have the answer. Because if you are in that space, if something has happened, you should already know that that question is coming. For instance, there's a client that we are preparing for an interview we talk about, and they just laid off some staff, and the reporter did not mention that he was going to ask, because we tried to get an idea of what the questions would be, he did not mention I was going to ask about that. But in preparing the client, we put together and say, we anticipate that this question will come. And if it comes, this is how you respond. And lo and behold, the interview happened. Everything was going really nice. The reporter was laughing. At the end, he said, finally, you said you've been doing great work and all of that. Why did you lay off your staff? Like, if you're really going good. The CEO was already prepared. He had the answer. So the work of the PR person must be to really anticipate, like, it's a game of chess, not checkers. Like, you've got to, like, be 7 steps ahead. And then you need to have, like, a talking point document that itemizes for everything in your industry. If they ask about crypto, this is what we say. If they ask about this is what we say. If they ask about why we're doing this is what we say. You have a document that has that. All you just need to do is constantly update the document and make it. So even if they just say, give it in 1 hour, you have the answers. Because you will not always have 3 days. And the reputation of your organization is on the line.
Again, there's a mistake that businesses usually, like Nigerian businesses, startup businesses usually make. Marketing and PR. Why do you people usually merge it together? Why is your marketing manager your PR manager? You see? So when you are trying to save money, you will not start spending more money. Because at the end of the day, every crisis that I've seen in startup are not managed by the in-house marketing people. They usually like outsource it. Because at the end of the day, you cannot handle it because your marketing and PR manager does not have the skill, right? You are just bringing pressure on that person's head. See, me, I cannot come and die. Oh, I cannot do this. Let's take it to, to David. Let's take it to Omojua, right? So I think, again, you need to like look into your talent and break it into two. It's two different roles: PR manager, communication, marketing and communication. Even marketing manager, three different roles, but you merge it together. And you now say, okay, go and face Tech Abada is asking us questions why we fire 50 people after raising $100 million. The person was like, I don't have answer. So that's it.
All right, thank you very much for this very enlightening conversation. Unfortunately, we don't have more time to take more questions. But I think we've learned from today's conversation basically that we should always have a plan before we do anything in the tech space, literally. Even when we're building, just always have a plan ahead of time so that helps you to manage whatever crisis issues that.
All right, we want to do a collective photograph, please. The speakers will after their photograph session, and everybody will just stand.
Downloaded our app, because if you download our app, we have a prize to give away at the end of this panel discussion. So do that now, Awari app on iOS and Play Store. So go ahead and download it, and we have a cool box here for a special someone to give away. So thank you so much for joining us today. You're probably wondering what the art of discoverability means or what it entails. So with Awari, what we do is help you discover your city through experiences, through finding about lifestyle businesses, from restaurants to shops to beauty to wellness, and everything in between. And what we want to achieve with that is to give an opportunity for businesses to create more awareness for their brands, but also for users to have more tools to enable them to discover more of their city and be able to enjoy it in a seamless way. So today I have with me some amazing ladies, and it was accidental that it's all women, but I'm happy about that. So let me do a quick introduction to you for those of you who may not know the lovely ladies on the stage. I'll start with Tayo and Candace Smith. I will let you guys do proper intros, but just in case you don't know the Smith sisters, they are entrepreneurs in every sense of the word, from the restaurant business to beauty and even real estate, exactly. So I'll let them introduce themselves in more detail. And we have Rory, who is a fabulous content developer and the founder of TripZap, and she's all about lifestyle and hospitality consultation. Again, I will let you introduce yourself in more detail. And Adeshola, who is the lead content partnerships for TikTok. So if you know anything about TikTok, it's like the leading thing right now. For me, I'm still trying to get my way around it. I'm having difficulty managing all my social media. So I'm going to let the Smith sisters introduce themselves quickly before we start asking some questions.
Hi guys, my name is Candace Smith. I'm the co-founder of, like Tana said, we're the co-founder of a few restaurants, beauty salon, and some short-let apartments as well.
I'm Tyrell Smith. All our businesses are together, so everything Kane said.
You need to tell them what your businesses are.
Oh, I thought we were running out of time.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Okay, so we run a salon. It's called My Extensions. So it's more of hair salon, selling hair, lashes, anything related to beauty. That's what we do. Then the next one is cafeteria. Many people don't know, but we are behind cafeteria. We just started coming out as the founders of cafeteria this year. Maple, I don't know if anyone has heard of Maple Lagos. We're also behind Maple Lagos as well. We have a new restaurant that we're launching in about 2 months. It's called The Smiths. So a little bit more fine dining. We have another business that we're coming out with next month. It's called Clay. So it's anything that has to do with decor. And some short-let apartments as well. And I don't know, am I missing anything? Yeah.
Hello? Okay, she said, let me see, because there's more.
There's one more. I'm just trying to remember.
That's it
For now.
For now, yeah, that's it.
And they're both quite active on social media too, so they're great content developers too.
Yes, that's what I'm missing.
And if you haven't been to their restaurants, you should check them out on Awari. Check them out on Awari. Rory.
Okay, hi, my name is Rory. I am founder CEO of TripZap, which is a hospitality development and consulting company. And we've managed several brands that you might know of. Landmark Beach, right there. We're the ones responsible for setting that up and becoming the go-to place. There's also Lighthouse Beach House, Island Breeze, the Corner Restaurant, and yeah, a few other things I don't remember as well. So yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about TripZap?
So that's the company. So TripZap is the... Hello? Okay, we're back. Yes, yeah. So that's essentially...
Okay, but you also do travel and lifestyle.
Well, so it's
content.
So it's very interesting. I do that for fun, really. I create content.
Who wouldn't do that for fun? I mean, traveling and visiting lifestyle businesses.
That's my outlet. But the thing is, it also feeds back to the brands that we do manage or operate in one way or the other. So, if, for instance, with Lighthouse, you would see me creating stuff at Lighthouse, which ends up drawing all of that traffic to the location. But yeah, it still feeds back to the business essentially. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Rory. Adeshola?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Adesola, and I like to think of myself as a content expert. I'm a storyteller, and that has to do with finding your identity and being able to describe that. I have worked with some amazing brands and companies such as the Tony Elumelu Foundation, Bella Niger, where I was for 7 years, and now currently at TikTok as also a content partnerships lead. Yeah, and I'm really excited to be here with these powerful women.
Thank you so much. Well, this is about the art of discoverability. So I think we have two different perspectives here. From the business owner perspective, lifestyle business owners, and from the content developer and consultation side of things. For me, the way I look at discoverability, it's more than just Googling a business and finding out where they are. It's about understanding them as a brand and wanting to make that decision, do I want to know more about this brand or not? And I think what makes you actually ask those questions and what makes you want to know more about the brand? Looking at it from the perspective of business owners, what does it mean to be discoverable to you?
For me, I think I'm a huge fan when it comes to branding. And pretty much Ty is the one who takes care of like all the recipes. Any recipe that has to do with any of the restaurants, she is the She's the mother, so she's the one who comes up with all this stuff. As far as branding and marketing, it's pretty much me. And anything related to me or my brand, I would like for people to know that we relate with each other. So if anyone sees me, I would like for them to know that, oh, that's cafeteria, or this is that, as opposed to just Googling, you know? So in regards to, I posted something on Instagram a few days ago where it's pretty much just like brand as many things as you can, whether it's hospitality, fashion, whatever the case may be. I always like to put my brand, my logo, anything affiliated with my brand on it. I mean, okay, obviously you don't want to brand every single thing because at some point it looks tacky, but if it's a cafe, you can brand your coffee mugs. Anything that someone can take photos of that would eventually